What's going on, everybody? Another edition of the 2023 version of the 30 to 1 MLB Countdown previews, brought to you by JohnPielli.com. If you are not familiar with the formula, it's not really a formula, it's just a guess, just like anybody else does. As you come into a given season, no matter what sport it is, you're going to predict what teams you're going to think are good and what teams you're going to think are going to do bad. And then we try to justify it by saying, hey, there's some sort of thing up in this general control thing between a skull and a little bit of muscles that is really making some sense to it all. And that's all we're trying to do. So I use the over-unders in each offseason put up by Las Vegas and others. And I look at the numbers and I say, hey, some of them are too high, some of them are too low. And I use it to contemplate my own projected win total for each one of the 30 MLB teams. First year I did it was 2012. It's now 2023. You do the math, it's been a while. Some of my predictions have been good, some of them have been bad. But when I have the win total, I total them up, whatever has the most, whoever has the least. And that's where I get the top win totals, 30 to 1. Do my previews in inverse order. Worst team is number 30. Best team is number 1. The team we're talking about today is a team that's been in Major League Baseball since 1962, won the World Series in 1969 and 1986, and is the only team in all of sports that I allow to hurt me, and that's the New York Mets. And if you look at their past offseason, they lost Jacob deGrom, Chris Bassett, Taijuan Walker, and then a couple bullpen pieces, Trevor May, Seth Lugo, traded James McCann, Tyler Naquin walked as a free agent, but made sure that for every loss they had another gain. They signed Justin Verlander, Kodai Senga, Jose Quintana, David Robertson, Brooks Raley they traded for from the Rays. Also traded for Jeff Brigham from the Miami Marlins, and Tommy Pham, who's going to get a lot of at-bats, basically as a fourth outfielder for the Mets. Their starting pitching, in spite of the monumental loss of deGrom, looks to be pretty solid this year. Scherzer, Verlander, Senga, Carlos Carrasco. If all of those guys stay healthy, it's hard to say there's a more formidable 1 through 4 in all of Major League Baseball. Losing Jose Quintana to at least for a couple months with the rib problem, thank God, there was no cancer involved. It's going to hurt them, but they do have some strength. They do have some guys that can start, young pitchers like Tyler McGill, David Peterson, maybe even a little bit of Joey Lucchesi, who's coming off of Tommy John surgery. Eliezer Hernandez came over in the same trade that got the Mets Jeff Brigham. So they have some guys that can start. You know where they're going to be in trouble? Obviously, listen, it's not too far removed from a couple days ago. The burn, the pain is still there from the injury to all-star closer Edwin Diaz. There was not a pitcher in baseball that dominated the sport more than Edwin Diaz did last year. He was such a lock. His slider was working even better than it was in the 2018 season when he starred for the Seattle Mariners. And it's going to be a tough situation for the Mets to try to replace him. David Robertson has got a lot of experience closing. They brought him over as a free agent from the Philadelphia Phillies. Adam Ottavino's back. Like I said, they traded for Raley and Brigham. Drew Smith. You look at a couple guys like Tommy Hunter and Jimmy Yacobonis. They could give you a little lightning in a bottle for a short period of time, but I really think the Mets have to go outside the organization and try to solidify their bullpen a little more, because you can't sit here and expect Edwin Diaz to be back at some point this year. I don't want to hear in September that they're looking at Edwin Diaz maybe coming back as a big-time addition. This guy was part of your team. He's not there. This is why you build up a good farm system, to make a trade like this when something unprecedented or unexpected happens. You look at the Mets lineup, and I think it's pretty solid. I would go Brandon Nimmo, Starling Marte, Lindor, Alonso, Jeff McNeil, Canna, Escobar, Vogelbosch, Navarez, in some sort of order there. If all those guys are healthy, they're going to be able to score runs. They scored a lot of runs last year. Offensively, they were pretty solid. Got a little tired as the season went on, but overall, it was a very good run-scoring team. Luis Guillorme is going to be able to help you out maybe second, short, third. They're hoping for a little bit of a bounce back from Darren Ruff, who was not very good with the Mets last year. Tomas Nido is the backup catcher. Danny Mendick comes over as a free agent infielder from the White Sox. Jose Peraza, who was good with the Mets a couple years ago when the Mets had that bench mob in 2021, is back on a minor league deal. So is Abraham Almonte, Jalen Davis, and Tim Locastro. All guys that you could see at different points perhaps making some contributions for the Mets. Really, one of the biggest strengths is the Mets farm system. I think it's as good, especially at the top level in regards to guys being major league ready, as it's been in a while. And the question's going to be, is Francisco Alvarez ready to get at bats at the major league level? Is he ready to maybe take over and be at least a part-time catcher for the Mets? Brett Beatty, is he ready to be the Mets starting third baseman? Mark Vientos, probably more of a corner infielder, maybe a good trade piece at this point. Maybe you think of Beatty and Vientos when it comes to getting that all-star reliever that they need. They need somebody to shut down the back end of the game. Kevin Parada, who was drafted in last year's draft, really isn't that far away from being major league ready. May be a better defensive catcher than Francisco Alvarez, and also I think can hit. Maybe doesn't have the power that Alvarez does. Jet Williams, another guy they drafted last year. He could be ready by the 2024 season. Ronnie Mauricio was hitting bombs all spring training. The question is going to be, do you have a legitimate spot in your major league lineup for Mauricio? He's a guy that, contrary to some of the other players, I don't think is going to thrive as a bench piece. I think when he's ready to play, you might want to put him out there and give him, let's say, the equivalent of 500 to 600 at-bats over a major league season. Now, listen, I like the Mets, not just because I root for them. I think that they're very well constructed. I think they're going in the right direction under Billy Epler. They won 101 games last year, so it's hard to not be confident coming off of a solid regular season like that in 2022. But they're also in a very tough division. I think the Phillies are going to be feeling pretty high and mighty about themselves, getting to the World Series last year. The Braves have won the National League East Division the last 5 years. I think the Mets, listen, they put themselves in a good position to compete. I think right now is the time where maybe they scour the market, see what teams are maybe interested in making a move, and go out there and get them a reliever to replace Edwin Diaz and make a run for the World Series. Overall, I got them 87-75. Remember, if you followed my other totals, win totals in all of Major League Baseball, I have being down in 2023. A lot of it's because of competition. A lot of it's because I don't think there's as many bad teams, any teams that are totally tanking as there was in the last 3 or 4 years. So I got the Mets finishing third place in the NL East, still getting in the wild card, the number 11 in regards to the 31 MLB countdown previews. If you like any of the content, you want to hear a little more about sports history, you can listen to the Past Ball Show. You can check it out on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, and obviously videos on YouTube. God bless you. And as always, I'll see you on the other side.